would you say are some of the highlights, the deals that you're most proud of? Let's take one that you did recently. The biggest deal you've ever done was Precision Castparts, about $37 billion in purchase price?
Yeah, it was between 32 and 33 billion of cash, and then we assumed about 4 billion of debt.
Okay. So how much, to spend $37 billion, you spent a year studying the company?
No.
How much time did you spend with the CEO?
I met the CEO, I think, on July 1st of last year, and he happened to be calling on certain shareholders, and one of the fellows in our office had a position in the stock for some time. So it was an accident I met him. If I'd been out playing golf or something, it never would have happened. But I went in and I liked him. I heard him talk for 30 minutes, and I then said to the fellow in our office, I said, call him tomorrow and say if he would like to receive a cash bid from Berkshire Hathaway, we would supply one. And if he wouldn't like to receive one, forget we ever called.
That was it? You hire any investment bankers to help you
No.
with the analysis?
No.
Do you ever hire investment bankers to help you analyze a company?
Not to help analyze the company. Sometimes they are involved in the deal, and we're perfectly willing to pay a fat commission.
One time you told me a story about how an investment banker was hired by somebody you were going to try to buy.
What happened on that was I said we'd pay $35 a share for a company then in American Energy, and they hired an investment banker, and the investment banker came out and spent about a week, and they wanted to send a big bill at the end, and they said, well, you've got to increase your price to make us look good. I said, I'm not really worried about whether you look good. So they hung around almost for about a week, and finally they called up and sort of pleaded and said, can't you increase your price somewhat so that we can send a bill and get paid appropriately for our non-services? And so I said, okay, you can tell them we'll pay $35.05, and you can say you got the last nickel out of me. So that's what we paid, $35.05.
Right. Normally you make a price and you don't.
Right.
And do you ever do any unfriendly deals?
No.
Why is
Although
that?
you can say Berkshire Hathaway originally was an unfriendly deal. But no, we're just not interested. Not that unfriendly deals are necessarily bad. I mean, there are managements that should be replaced. But
now, people must call you every day and say, I have a deal for you, it's perfect. And how often do any of these deals ever pan out?
they don't call every day, and we've made our criteria fairly clear. So there's relatively few that call, and when somebody calls, I can usually tell within 2 or 3 minutes whether a deal's likely to happen or not. There's just a half a dozen filters, and it either makes it through the filters or it doesn't.
One time I was told that you got a letter from somebody from Israel.
Correct.
Saying, I'd like you to look at my company. Now, what's the likelihood that somebody from Israel sends a company prospectus to you over the transom and you say you're going to buy it? And you did buy it.
Yeah, we did buy it. We bought 80% of it at that time for $4 billion, and then we later bought the remaining 20%.
But before you bought it, did you go to Israel to look at the company?
No, I did not go to Israel. I hope it's there.
And you were happy with what you bought?
Absolutely.
And you also bought one of the biggest railroads in the world.
That's correct.
And that's worked out okay recently?
That's worked out okay.
What was the theory behind buying a railroad? Because people thought they were kind of fossils as businesses.
The railroad business had a bad century. They're kind of like the Chicago Cubs. Right. Everybody has a bad century now and then. But finally, the railroad industry got rationalized to quite an extent and modernized. And the railroad business is a good business. It's not a great business, but it's a good business. And in the fall of 2009, we already owned a fair amount of BNSF, Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and the price, it looked like we could do it at a sensible price. So that was a Thursday, and on Friday I said we would pay $100 per share if the directors were interested, and he checked with the directors over the weekend, and the following Sunday we had a contract signed.